The mysterious signal. The Galactic Council had long prided itself on its ability to monitor every corner of the galaxy. No species could rise to power without their knowledge, and no threat could emerge without their intervention. But that confidence was shaken when an unexpected signal was detected from the edge of a far-flung star system, one that hadn't been on any of their maps. The signal was faint but distinct, an energy pulse unlike anything they had encountered before. It carried no identifiable language, no recognizable pattern, and it was entirely devoid of any known technology signature. The Council's curiosity was piqued, and they quickly dispatched one of their most advanced scout ships to investigate. The scout ship, named the Sentinel, was crewed by an elite team of various species, each selected for their expertise in exploration and first contact scenarios. As they approached the star system, the signal grew stronger, guiding them to an uncharted planet nestled within the system's only habitable zone. What they found there defied all expectations. The planet was rich with life, its surface covered in dense forests, vast oceans, and towering mountains. But the true surprise lay in orbit. A colossal ship, unlike anything the Council had ever seen. The ship was massive, easily the size of a small moon, and it was bristling with weaponry and technology that the scout team couldn't begin to comprehend. Its surface was marked with deep scars and pockmarks, evidence of countless battles fought and won. Yet, despite its intimidating appearance, the ship seemed dormant, as if waiting for something or someone. Cautiously, the Sentinel sent a hail to the mysterious vessel, but there was no response. The crew debated their next move. Should they attempt to board the ship? Should they report back to the Council? Or should they continue their investigation, hoping to unravel the mystery of this enigmatic craft? Before they could decide, the signal that had brought them to the planet suddenly intensified. The ship came to life. Its engines roared, and its weapon systems began to power up. The crew of the Sentinel braced for an attack, but it never came. Instead, the ship emitted a burst of energy that enveloped the scout ship, scanning it thoroughly before retreating back into its dormant state. The crew was stunned. What was this ship? Who had built it? And why was it here? And most importantly, what was its purpose? The only clue they had was the signal, which continued to pulse from the ship, as if beckoning them to uncover its secrets. Realizing that they were dealing with something far beyond their understanding, the Sentinel crew decided to call for reinforcements. They transmitted their findings to the Galactic Council and requested immediate assistance. But even as they did, they knew that whatever lay ahead would be unlike anything they had ever encountered before. The response from the Council was swift. They recognized the potential threat and the opportunity that this ship represented. A fleet was assembled, consisting of warships, science vessels, and diplomats, all prepared to meet whatever challenge or opportunity this mysterious ship presented. But as the fleet approached the system, something unexpected happened. The ship began to move, breaking its orbit and setting a course for the edge of the galaxy. The fleet pursued, but the ship's speed was incredible, far surpassing anything the Council's ships could manage. Within moments, the ship had vanished into the void, leaving the fleet behind. The Council was left with more questions than answers. What was this ship? Who were its creators? And where was it going? But one thing was clear. This was not the last they would see of the mysterious vessel. The galaxy was about to witness something extraordinary, something that would challenge their understanding of the universe and their place in it. The Forgotten Fleet. The Galactic Council's fleet returned to their home base with a mixture of frustration and unease. The mysterious ship had slipped through their fingers, leaving them with nothing but the faint traces of its energy signature and the burning desire to uncover its secrets. But even as the Council debated their next move, new information began to trickle in from their network of informants and scouts. Across the galaxy, rumors spread like wildfire, whispers of a forgotten fleet, a relic of a time long past, created by a civilization that had vanished into the annals of history. This fleet, it was said, had been built to protect something of immense value, a secret so powerful that it had been hidden away from the rest of the galaxy for millennia. The Council's historians and archaeologists pored over ancient records, searching for any mention of such a fleet. What they found was fragmented and incomplete, but it was enough to paint a picture of a long-lost empire, one that had risen to great heights before mysteriously disappearing. The fleet, it seemed, had been designed as the Empire's last line of defense, a formidable force capable of standing against any threat. But the Empire had fallen, and the fleet had been lost, until now. The Council realized that the ship they had encountered was likely one of these ancient vessels, reawakening after centuries of slumber. But why had it chosen this moment to reemerge? And what had become of the rest of the fleet? Determined to find answers, the Council authorized a full-scale search of the galaxy, mobilizing every available resource to locate the lost fleet. They knew that time was of the essence. If the fleet had indeed been designed to protect something of great value, then that something might still be out there. And it might still be in danger. As the search began, the Council's intelligence network picked up on another disturbing trend. Across the galaxy, several powerful factions were also on the move, their fleets converging on key systems with unprecedented speed. It was as if they too had caught wind of the lost fleet and were determined to claim whatever treasure it guarded for themselves. The race was on. The Council knew that if they were to have any hope of securing the lost fleet and whatever secrets it held, they would need to act quickly and decisively. But even as they deployed their forces, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that the reawakening of the lost fleet had set into motion events that were far beyond their control. Unbeknownst to the Council, the mysterious ship had not fled to the edge of the galaxy for no reason. It had been following a signal of its own, one that led it to a hidden system, far from prying eyes. There, in the cold depths of space, the ship found what it had been searching for: the remnants of the forgotten fleet, scattered and damaged, but still intact. The ship's AI, ancient and powerful, initiated repairs on the fleet, bringing the long-dormant vessels back online. As each ship powered up, it broadcast a signal across the galaxy, a call to arms that only those attuned to the ancient frequencies could hear. And hear it they did. Across the galaxy, old allies and enemies alike stirred, their long-buried memories of the lost fleet awakening. The galaxy was on the brink of a new era, one that would see the return of the ancient fleet and the secrets it guarded. But whether that return would bring peace or destruction remained to be seen. The Council, now aware that they were not the only ones searching for the fleet, doubled their efforts. They knew that the race for the lost fleet had just begun, and that the fate of the galaxy might well depend on who reached it first. The shadow of war. The race to find the lost fleet had intensified, with every major faction in the galaxy mobilizing their forces in a desperate bid to locate the ancient vessels before anyone else. The Galactic Council, though vast and powerful, found itself outmatched by the sheer number of competitors, each of whom had their own reasons for wanting to claim the fleet's power. Among these factions were the Zaran Dominion, a warlike empire known for its ruthless tactics and insatiable hunger for conquest; the Xelera Confederacy, a loose coalition of worlds united by their shared desire for independence from the Council's influence; and the enigmatic Veil Syndicate, a shadowy organization with ties to the galaxy's most dangerous criminals and mercenaries. Each faction had its own agents and spies, each seeking to outmaneuver the others in the hunt for the lost fleet. But as the search continued, it became clear that the fleet was not merely a relic of the past. It was a prize that could tip the balance of power in the galaxy, and perhaps even change the course of history. The Council, aware of the stakes, began to assemble its own strike force, a fleet of warships and special operations teams tasked with securing the lost fleet at any cost. They knew that the moment they found the fleet, they would need to defend it against all comers, and that the ensuing battle could be the most significant conflict the galaxy had seen in centuries. But even as the Council prepared for war, a new threat emerged from the shadows. The Veil Syndicate, always one step ahead, had discovered the location of the hidden system where the mysterious ship had gone. They had also uncovered the truth about the fleet's purpose. It was not merely a defensive force, but a weapon, one capable of reshaping the galaxy in the hands of whoever controlled it. The Syndicate, recognizing the potential of the fleet, began to lay the groundwork for a bold and dangerous plan. They would infiltrate the system, seize control of the fleet, and use it to enforce their will upon the galaxy. But they were not alone in their ambitions. The Zaran Dominion and the Accelera Confederacy had also caught wind of the fleet's location, and both factions were preparing their own strikes. The stage was set for a galactic showdown, one that would see the most powerful forces in the galaxy clash over the fate of the lost fleet. The Council, knowing that they were running out of time, made a fateful decision. They would deploy their fleet to the hidden system, even if it meant facing their rivals head-on. As the Council's fleet jumped to the system, they found themselves surrounded by the enemy. The Veil Syndicate's ships lurked in the shadows, their stealth systems making them almost invisible, while the Zaran Dominion's warships loomed large, their weapons charged and ready for battle. The Accelera Confederacy's fleet, smaller but more agile, moved with precision, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The battle that followed was fierce and chaotic, with ships from all sides engaging in a deadly dance of fire and maneuver. The Council's forces fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered and outgunned, and it quickly became clear that they would not be able to hold the line for long. But just as the tide of battle seemed to turn against them, something unexpected happened. The lost fleet, now fully operational, emerged from the hidden system, its ancient ships bristling with weapons and energy. The fleet, guided by the mysterious ship, joined the battle, its powerful weapons tearing through the enemy lines with ease. The arrival of the lost fleet turned the tide of the battle, and the Council's forces rallied, pressing the attack with renewed vigor. The enemy fleets, caught off guard by the sudden appearance of the ancient ships, began to falter, their ranks breaking as they tried to retreat. But the battle was far from over. The Veil Syndicate, ever resourceful, launched a desperate assault on the mysterious ship, hoping to capture it and seize control of the fleet. The Zaran Dominion, unwilling to admit defeat, unleashed their most powerful weapons, determined to destroy the fleet if they couldn't have it. The galaxy teetered on the brink of destruction as the battle reached its climax. The fate of the lost fleet and the future of the galaxy hung in the balance. The heart of the fleet. The battle raged on, a maelstrom of destruction and chaos as the fleets of the Galactic Council, the Zaran Dominion, the Accelera Confederacy, and the Veil Syndicate clashed over control of the lost fleet. The ancient ships, now fully operational, were a force to be reckoned with, their weapons cutting through the enemy with terrifying precision. But despite their overwhelming power, the battle was far from won. Amid the chaos, the mysterious ship that had first led the Council to the hidden system moved with purpose, weaving through the battlefield with an almost eerie grace. Its AI, ancient and inscrutable, guided it toward the heart of the lost fleet, where the most powerful of the ancient ships, a massive dreadnought known only as the Eternal, lay dormant, waiting to be awakened. The Eternal was the key to the fleet's full potential. Larger than any other ship in the fleet, it was a fortress in space, bristling with weapons and defenses that could turn the tide of any battle. But more than that, it held within it the fleet's central command core, the AI that had once controlled the entire fleet during the ancient empire's final days. The crew of the mysterious ship knew that if they could activate the Eternal, they could turn the entire fleet into a unified force under their command, capable of overwhelming any opposition. But they were not the only ones with that goal. The Veil Syndicate, ever resourceful and cunning, had launched a daring boarding operation, sending their most elite operatives to infiltrate the Eternal and take control of the command core for themselves. As the mysterious ship approached the Eternal, it detected the Syndicate's operatives already inside the massive vessel. The AI quickly calculated the odds and determined that the only way to secure the command core was to send its own team aboard the Eternal. The crew, a mix of the galaxy's most skilled operatives and scientists, prepared for the most critical mission of their lives. They boarded the Eternal through a series of narrow access tunnels, moving swiftly and silently through the ship's darkened corridors. The ancient ship was a labyrinth of metal and machinery, its halls echoing with the distant sounds of battle outside. The crew knew they had to reach the command core before the Syndicate operatives could, or all would be lost. As they made their way deeper into the ship, they encountered resistance, automated defense systems that had been dormant for centuries, now reactivated by the ship's AI to protect the core. The crew fought their way through, using their advanced technology and combat skills to disable the defenses and continue their mission. But the Syndicate operatives were not far behind. They were highly trained, equipped with cutting-edge technology, and a ruthless determination to succeed. They had already breached the outer defenses and were closing in on the command core, their goal within reach. The two teams finally converged in the core chamber, a massive, dimly lit room filled with ancient machinery and holographic displays. At the center of the chamber lay the command core itself, a massive, glowing sphere of energy and data, pulsating with the power of the fleet. The fight for control of the core was brutal and intense. The crew of the mysterious ship fought with everything they had, knowing that the fate of the fleet, and perhaps the entire galaxy, depended on their success. The Syndicate operatives were relentless, using every trick and tactic at their disposal to gain the upper hand. In the end, it was the crew's ingenuity and determination that won the day. They managed to outmaneuver the Syndicate operatives, securing the command core and activating the Eternal. The ancient ship roared to life, its systems coming online as the AI took control, linking the entire fleet into a single, cohesive force. With the Eternal at the helm, the Lost Fleet turned its full power on the enemy, driving them back with a relentless assault. The Zaran Dominion's warships were the first to fall, their hulking forms crumbling under the onslaught of the fleet's advanced weaponry. The Xelra Confederacy, seeing the tide turn, attempted to retreat, but the fleet's speed and firepower were too much for them to escape. The Veil Syndicate, realizing that they had lost the battle for the fleet, made one final desperate move. They targeted the Eternal with everything they had, launching a barrage of missiles and energy weapons in a last-ditch effort to destroy the ship and deny the Council their victory. But the Eternal was not so easily defeated. Its shields held, and its weapons returned fire with devastating precision. The Syndicate's ships were torn apart, their debris scattering across the battlefield as the Lost Fleet claimed victory. With the battle won, the Galactic Council's fleet regrouped, their ships surrounding the Eternal as it assumed its place at the head of the Lost Fleet. The Council had succeeded in securing the ancient vessels, but they knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy had changed, and the power of the Lost Fleet would shape its future. As the Council's leaders prepared to address the galaxy, they couldn't help but wonder what the reawakening of the fleet would mean for the balance of power. Would it bring peace and stability, or would it spark new conflicts as factions vied for control? And what of the fleet's ancient creators? Had they left behind other secrets, waiting to be discovered? The answers to these questions would soon be revealed, as the galaxy stood on the brink of a new era, one defined by the power of the Lost Fleet. As they made their way deeper into the ship, they encountered resistance. Automated defense systems that had been dormant for centuries, now reactivated by the ship's AI to protect the core. The crew fought their way through, using their advanced technology and combat skills to disable the defenses and continue their mission. But the Syndicate operatives were not far behind. They were highly trained, equipped with cutting-edge technology, and a ruthless determination to succeed. They had already breached the outer defenses and were closing in on the command core, their goal within reach. The two teams finally converged in the core chamber, a massive, dimly lit room filled with ancient machinery and holographic displays. At the center of the chamber lay the command core itself, a massive, glowing sphere of energy and data, pulsating with the power of the fleet. The fight for control of the core was brutal and intense. The crew of the mysterious ship fought with everything they had, knowing that the fate of the fleet, and perhaps the entire galaxy, depended on their success. The Syndicate operatives were relentless, using every trick and tactic at their disposal to gain the upper hand. In the end, it was the crew's ingenuity and determination that won the day. They managed to outmaneuver the Syndicate operatives, securing the command core and activating the Eternal. The ancient ship roared to life, its systems coming online as the AI took control, linking the entire fleet into a single, cohesive force. With the Eternal at the helm, the Lost Fleet turned its full power on the enemy, driving them back with a relentless assault. The Zaran Dominion's warships were the first to fall, their hulking forms crumbling under the onslaught of the fleet's advanced weaponry. The Xelera Confederacy, seeing the tide turn, attempted to retreat, but the fleet's speed and firepower were too much for them to escape. The Veil Syndicate, realizing that they had lost the battle for the fleet, made one final desperate move. They targeted the Eternal with everything they had, launching a barrage of missiles and energy weapons in a last-ditch effort to destroy the ship and deny the Council their victory. But the Eternal was not so easily defeated. Its shields held, and its weapons returned fire with devastating precision. The Syndicate's ships were torn apart, their debris scattering across the battlefield as the Lost Fleet claimed victory. With the battle won, the Galactic Council's fleet regrouped, their ships surrounding the Eternal as it assumed its place at the head of the Lost Fleet. The Council had succeeded in securing the ancient vessels, but they knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy had changed, and the power of the Lost Fleet would shape its future. As the Council's leaders prepared to address the galaxy, they couldn't help but wonder what the reawakening of the fleet would mean for the balance of power. Would it bring peace and stability, or would it spark new conflicts as factions vied for control? And what of the fleet's ancient creators? Had they left behind other secrets, waiting to be discovered? The answers to these questions would soon be revealed, as the galaxy stood on the brink of a new era, one defined by the power of the Lost Fleet. The Council's dilemma, the victory over the rival factions, and the successful activation of the Lost Fleet brought a sense of accomplishment to the Galactic Council, but it also presented them with a monumental dilemma. The power they now wielded was immense, potentially enough to dominate the entire galaxy. However, with that power came the responsibility of how to wield it. The Council convened in an emergency session, with representatives from every member species gathering to discuss the future. The debate was heated, with strong opinions on all sides. Some argued that the fleet should be used to enforce peace across the galaxy, crushing any faction that dared to challenge the Council's authority. Others believed that the fleet should be dismantled or hidden away, fearing the temptation and danger that such power represented. As the discussion continued, it became clear that there was no easy answer. The fleet had been created by an ancient empire that had long since vanished, and its true purpose remained a mystery. The command core of the Eternal held vast amounts of data, but much of it was encrypted or corrupted, leaving the Council with more questions than answers. One thing was certain: the fleet had been reawakened for a reason, and the Council needed to understand that reason before making any decisions. To that end, they authorized a team of scientists and historians to delve into the Eternal's archives, hoping to uncover the secrets of the ancient empire and the fleet's original mission. As the investigation began, the Council faced another challenge. News of the battle and the reawakening of the fleet had spread across the galaxy, and factions that had not been involved in the conflict were now taking notice. Some saw the fleet as a threat, while others viewed it as an opportunity. Diplomatic envoys from various governments began arriving at the Council's capital, each seeking to influence the Council's decision on what to do with the fleet. Among the most vocal were the Zaran Dominion, the Xelera Confederacy, and the Veil Syndicate, all of whom had suffered heavy losses in the battle, but were still powerful enough to be a threat. They demanded reparations and made veiled threats, warning the Council that the fleet's existence could lead to further conflict if not handled carefully. The Council's leadership knew that they were walking a tightrope. If they appeared too aggressive, they could spark a galaxy-wide war. If they were too passive, they risked losing control of the fleet and the respect of the member species. They needed to strike a balance, demonstrating their strength while also showing restraint. To that end, the Council decided to take a multi-pronged approach. They would begin by using the fleet to secure the most unstable regions of the galaxy, restoring order and protecting vulnerable systems from pirate attacks and rogue factions. At the same time, they would engage in diplomacy, reaching out to the other factions to negotiate a new balance of power that acknowledged the Council's control of the fleet while avoiding unnecessary conflict. The Council's envoys were dispatched to the capitals of the Zaran Dominion, the Tselra Confederacy, and the Vale Syndicate, each bearing offers of peace and cooperation. The message was clear. The Council had no desire for war, but they would not hesitate to use the fleet if provoked. As the diplomatic efforts got underway, the investigation into the Eternal's archives began to yield results. The scientists and historians uncovered fragments of data that hinted at the ancient empire's true purpose for the fleet. It seemed that the fleet had been created not just as a defensive force, but as a safeguard against a specific threat, one that had driven the empire to the brink of extinction. The nature of this threat remained unclear, but the implications were troubling. The fleet had been designed to face an enemy that the ancient empire had deemed unstoppable, and the fact that the fleet had been reawakened suggested that this threat might still be out there. The Council's leadership was faced with an impossible choice. Should they focus on consolidating their power and maintaining order in the galaxy, or should they prepare for a possible threat that might never materialize? The pressure was mounting, and the fate of the galaxy rested on their decision. As the Council deliberated, the galaxy watched and waited, wondering what the future would hold. The reawakening of the lost fleet had set in motion events that could not be undone, and the galaxy stood on the brink of a new era, one filled with uncertainty, danger, and the promise of great power. The decision they made in the coming days would shape the destiny of countless worlds and species, and the Council knew that they could not afford to make the wrong choice. The fate of the galaxy was in their hands, and the clock was ticking. A new threat emerges. The Council's efforts to stabilize the galaxy and maintain control of the lost fleet were met with mixed success. While they managed to restore order in several volatile regions and forged tentative alliances with some of the major factions, the underlying tensions remained. The fleet was a symbol of power and fear, and not everyone was willing to accept the Council's authority without question. As the diplomatic efforts continued, the investigation into the Eternal's archives revealed more troubling information. The ancient empire that had created the fleet had been engaged in a long and bitter war with an unknown enemy, one that had pushed them to the brink of extinction. The fleet had been their last line of defense, a desperate attempt to hold back the tide of destruction. The records were incomplete and fragmented, but they painted a picture of a relentless and overwhelming force, an enemy that had consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing but devastation in its wake. The ancient empire had fought valiantly, but in the end, they had been unable to stop the onslaught. The fleet had been their final hope, a weapon of last resort that they had placed in stasis, hoping that future generations would be able to wield it against the threat. The Council scientists were able to piece together enough information to identify the nature of the threat. It was not a conventional enemy, but rather a force of nature, a swarm of self-replicating machines that had been unleashed by a long-dead civilization. These machines, known as the nanophage, were designed to consume all matter they encountered, breaking it down and using it to create more of themselves. They were a plague on a galactic scale, an unstoppable force that had wiped out countless civilizations before the ancient empire had managed to contain them. But the containment had not been perfect. The records indicated that the nanophage had been driven back to the edge of the galaxy, where they had been sealed away in a remote region of space. The fleet had been designed to patrol this region, ensuring that the seal remained intact and the nanophage did not escape. However, something had changed. The fleet had been reawakened, and the records hinted that the seal had been weakened. The nanophage might still be out there, waiting for the opportunity to break free and resume their rampage across the galaxy. The Council was faced with a dire choice. They could continue their efforts to maintain order in the galaxy, using the fleet as a tool of diplomacy and defense, or they could redirect their focus to the threat of the nanophage, potentially sacrificing their newfound power in the process. The debate within the Council was intense. Some argued that the threat of the nanophage was too remote to justify diverting resources from the more immediate concerns of galactic stability. Others believed that the danger was too great to ignore, and that the fleet's true purpose should be to prevent the return of the nanophage at all costs. In the end, the Council reached a compromise. They would send a portion of the fleet to the region, where the nanophage were believed to be sealed, to assess the situation and determine if the threat was real. At the same time, they would continue their efforts to maintain order and stability in the galaxy, using the remaining ships to enforce their authority and protect vulnerable systems. The fleet's expeditionary force, led by the Eternal, set out for the edge of the galaxy, where the ancient seal was located. The journey was long and treacherous, taking them through regions of space that had not been explored in millennia. Along the way, they encountered the remnants of civilizations that had been destroyed by the nanophage, their worlds reduced to lifeless husks. As they approached the sealed region, the fleet's sensors detected unusual readings, signs of activity that should not have been possible in a region that had been sealed off for thousands of years. The closer they got, the stronger the signals became, until they finally reached the seal itself. What they found was both shocking and terrifying. The seal was breaking down, its energy fields flickering and weakening. And beyond the seal, they detected a massive concentration of nanophage machines, slowly but surely eroding the barrier that had held them at bay for so long. The fleet's commanders knew that they had to act quickly. If the seal failed, the nanophage would be unleashed once more, and the galaxy would face a threat unlike any it had ever seen. They had the firepower to destroy the machines, but doing so would require a significant portion of the fleet's resources, leaving the rest of the galaxy vulnerable. The Council was informed of the situation and faced with a critical decision. Should they commit the fleet to stopping the nanophage, knowing that it would weaken their hold on the galaxy, or should they pull back and hope that the seal would hold long enough for them to consolidate their power? The galaxy held its breath as the Council deliberated, the fate of countless worlds hanging in the balance. The reawakening of the lost fleet had set in motion a chain of events that could not be undone, and the Council's decision would shape the future of the galaxy for generations to come. Would they rise to the challenge and confront the ancient threat, or would they succumb to the temptation of power, leaving the galaxy to face the consequences? The answer would soon be revealed, as the fleet prepared for the battle that would determine the fate of the galaxy. The battle for the seal. The Council's deliberation was tense, with leaders and representatives debating into the night. Ultimately, they knew they had no choice. The threat of the nanophage was too great. The Council voted unanimously to commit the fleet to securing the seal, even if it meant leaving other regions vulnerable. The galaxy's survival depended on it. The Eternal and its fleet arrived at the edge of the galaxy, where the failing seal struggled to contain the nanophage. The sight was terrifying. The vast swarm of self-replicating machines had amassed against the weakening barrier, their numbers beyond comprehension. If they broke free, they would spread like a plague, consuming everything in their path. The Eternal's AI analyzed the situation, calculating the best strategy to reinforce the seal and destroy as many nanophages as possible. But it quickly became clear that this would be no simple task. The nanophage had evolved during their centuries of entrapment, developing new strategies and forms to overcome the barrier. They had grown more sophisticated, and they were adapting to the fleet's presence. The battle began with a coordinated assault. The fleet deployed specialized warships equipped with powerful energy projectors designed to stabilize the failing seal, while the Eternal unleashed a barrage of high-yield weapons into the swarm. The other ships focused on thinning the nanophage's numbers, creating a defensive perimeter around the seal. At first, the plan seemed to be working. The energy projectors reinforced the seal, and the fleet's weapons cut through the nanophage swarm, destroying countless machines. But the victory was short-lived. The nanophage adapted quickly, shifting their tactics. They began to swarm the energy projectors, overwhelming them with sheer numbers. Simultaneously, they launched focused attacks on the Eternal, probing its defenses for weaknesses. The fleet's commanders realized they were fighting a losing battle. The nanophage were too numerous and too adaptive. For every machine they destroyed, more seemed to take its place. The fleet was being pushed to its limits, and the seal was still weakening. In the midst of the chaos, a new plan emerged, a desperate, last-ditch effort to save the galaxy. The Eternal's AI proposed a radical solution. It would overload its own core, creating a massive energy pulse that could annihilate the nanophage swarm and permanently reseal the barrier. But this action would come at a great cost. The Eternal itself would be destroyed, and with it, the command core that controlled the entire fleet. The decision was agonizing. The Eternal was the most powerful ship in the fleet, the key to the Council's dominance. Without it, the fleet would be leaderless, its forces scattered and weakened. But there was no other option. If the nanophage broke free, the entire galaxy would be at risk. The Council was informed of the plan, and after a brief but emotional debate, they gave the order. The Eternal prepared for its final mission, its AI communicating with the fleet one last time, instructing the other ships to withdraw to a safe distance. As the fleet pulled back, the Eternal moved toward the center of the swarm, drawing the nanophage machines toward it. The ancient ship glowed with energy as its core began to overload, building up power for the final strike. The nanophage, sensing the danger, swarmed the ship, trying to tear it apart before it could complete its mission. But the Eternal held firm. It unleashed its remaining weapons in a final barrage, clearing a path to the center of the swarm. Then, with a flash of blinding light, the ship's core overloaded, releasing an immense energy pulse that rippled through space. The pulse swept through the swarm, disintegrating the nanophage machines and sealing the barrier with an energy field so powerful that nothing could break through. The threat was ended, the seal reinforced, and the galaxy saved, but at the cost of the Eternal and its AI. As the light faded, the fleet was left adrift in the silence of space, the Eternal nothing more than a field of debris floating among the stars. The fleet's remaining ships regrouped, their commanders and crews reeling from the loss. The command core was gone, and with it, the ability to control the fleet as a unified force. The aftermath and the rising dawn. The fleet returned to the Council's capital, the remnants of its power a somber reminder of the price of victory. The galaxy was safe, but the balance of power had shifted once again. Without the Eternal, the Council's dominance was weakened, and the rival factions saw an opportunity to regain their lost influence. Diplomatic channels were flooded with messages from across the galaxy. Some factions offered their support, recognizing the Council's sacrifice and the necessity of maintaining peace. Others were less magnanimous, demanding concessions in exchange for their cooperation, eager to exploit the Council's weakened position. Inside the Council chambers, the mood was somber but resolute. The loss of the Eternal had been a heavy blow, but the Council knew they had made the right decision. They had saved the galaxy from an existential threat, and now they had to rebuild both their fleet and their alliances. The scientists who had studied the Eternal's archives continued their work, now focusing on the data they had recovered before the ship's destruction. Among the fragmented records, they found something unexpected. A series of coordinates scattered across the galaxy, locations that had been marked by the ancient empire, but never explored. The records hinted at hidden installations, possibly even other dormant fleets or caches of advanced technology that could help the Council rebuild its strength. The Council's leaders debated the best course of action. Some argued for a cautious approach, focusing on diplomacy and rebuilding their alliances before embarking on any new expeditions. Others believed that the key to the Council's future lay in these ancient coordinates. They might hold the answers to mysteries even greater than the nanophage, or provide the technology needed to restore the fleet's power. In the end, the Council decided to pursue both paths. They would strengthen their diplomatic ties with other factions, offering them a role in the new order that the Council sought to build. At the same time, they would dispatch exploratory teams to investigate the ancient coordinates, hoping to uncover the secrets of the Lost Empire. The first of these expeditions set out, led by one of the Council's most skilled captains. The crew was a diverse group composed of scientists, soldiers, and diplomats, each representing a different faction within the Council. Their mission was not just to find new resources, but to forge new alliances, demonstrating that the Council was still a force for unity and stability in the galaxy. In the end, the Council decided to pursue both paths. They would strengthen their diplomatic ties with other factions, offering them a role in the new order that the Council sought to build. At the same time, they would dispatch exploratory teams to investigate the ancient coordinates, hoping to uncover the secrets of the Lost Empire. The first of these expeditions set out, led by one of the Council's most skilled captains. The crew was a diverse group composed of scientists, soldiers, and diplomats, each representing a different faction within the Council. Their mission was not just to find new resources, but to forge new alliances, demonstrating that the Council was still a force for unity and stability in the galaxy. As the exploration ships ventured into the unknown, the Council worked to maintain peace within the galaxy. The Veil Syndicate, Zaran Dominion, and Celera Confederacy, though weakened, remained powerful forces, and their leaders were invited to join the Council in a new era of cooperation. The Council extended an olive branch, offering to share the spoils of any new discoveries with those who would pledge their support for galactic peace. The galaxy held its breath as the expeditions continued. Each discovery brought new challenges, new allies, and new enemies. The ancient empire had left behind more than just ships and weapons. It had left a legacy of secrets, some of which could change the course of history. The Council faced an uncertain future, but they were determined to lead the galaxy into a new dawn. They had faced the darkness of the nanophage and emerged victorious. But the true test was yet to come. Would they be able to unite the galaxy under their banner? Or would the legacy of the ancient empire bring about their downfall? Only time would tell, as the Council navigated the treacherous waters of galactic politics and the mysteries of the past. But one thing was certain. The reawakening of the Lost Fleet had set the galaxy on a new path, and there would be no turning back. The dawn of a new era was at hand, and the Council would do whatever it took to ensure that it was a dawn of peace, not destruction. Shadows of the past. As the Council's exploration teams delved deeper into the ancient coordinates, they began to uncover relics and artifacts of immense power and complexity. Each discovery added to the growing understanding of the Lost Empire and its war against the nanophage, but it also raised new questions about the nature of the ancient enemy and the true purpose of the fleet. One such discovery, in a remote system on the edge of the galaxy, would prove to be the most significant yet. Hidden within a massive asteroid field, the exploration team found an ancient installation, an outpost that had once served as a command center for the Empire's fleet operations. Inside, they discovered a vast archive of data, preserved in a form that had survived the ravages of time. The data revealed the existence of a hidden enemy, one that had been manipulating events from the shadows, even before the rise of the nanophage. This enemy, known in the records as the Void Lords, were beings of pure energy, ancient and malevolent. They had existed since the dawn of the universe, watching civilizations rise and fall, and occasionally intervening to reshape the galaxy according to their unknowable designs. The Void Lords had played a role in the creation of the nanophage, using them as a tool to weaken the ancient empire and prepare the galaxy for their own return. They had sown the seeds of chaos and destruction across the galaxy for millennia, biding their time until they could emerge from the shadows and assert their dominance. The exploration team was horrified by this revelation. The nanophage had been a terrifying threat, but the Void Lords were something else entirely, a force of cosmic malevolence that had been lurking in the background, waiting for the right moment to strike. The Council was informed of the discovery, and once again, they found themselves facing an existential threat. The Void Lords were beyond anything they had ever encountered, and the ancient records offered few clues on how to defeat them. The only hope lay in the secrets buried within the Lost Empire's technology and knowledge. The Council made the decision to keep the existence of the Void Lords a secret from the rest of the galaxy. They could not risk a panic, nor could they afford to show any sign of weakness. Instead, they focused their efforts on studying the data and preparing for the inevitable confrontation. They knew that the Void Lords would not remain in the shadows forever, and when they emerged, the Council would need to be ready. In the meantime, the galaxy continued to rebuild, unaware of the looming threat. The Council worked tirelessly to maintain the fragile peace, forging new alliances and strengthening their forces. But as they did, they could not shake the feeling that they were being watched, that the Void Lords were already beginning to move their pieces into place for the final game. The reawakening of the Lost Fleet had saved the galaxy from the nanophage, but it had also drawn the attention of something far more dangerous. The Void Lords had waited eons for this moment, and now the Council would have to face the shadows of the past if they hoped to secure the future. The galaxy's fate hung in the balance once more, as the Council prepared for the ultimate battle, a battle not just for survival, but for the very soul of the galaxy.